want to order about 4 big Burger King Whoppers and French fries and about 3 big 2-liter Pepsis.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at some of the most unsettling and eerie interviews, statements, and final words ever recorded from notorious killers and criminals before their executions.
They grabbed me, and just as I started out the door, he said, "I'll see you in the morning, man." And, of course, we both knew what that meant.
William Bonin. The case of the freeway killer remains one of the most disturbing in California's history, and his final interviews made it even more so.
I can't give you a reason why I used it except for possibly making sure that the person was dead.
William Bonin, responsible for a series of murders in Southern California in 1979 and 1980, gave several interviews during his years on death row. In these interviews, Bonin displayed an eerie calm, claiming he felt, quote, no guilt, and described his crimes with detached precision.
Started kicking, and I strangled him.
In one notable exchange, he insisted that he was driven by compulsion, saying he acted because he, quote, wanted to see what it would feel like.
And so I stabbed him a couple more times.
Anatoly Slivko. While Soviet serial killer Anatoly Slivko did not give media interviews before his 1989 execution, he did participate in filmed KGB questioning that functioned much the same. In these recorded sessions, Slivko calmly described how he staged, quote, youth experiments, which were actually the grooming rituals that led to his murders. He explained his methods in disturbing detail while maintaining an oddly polite yet emotionless tone. In his final days, Slivko showed minimal outward remorse, instead framing his killings as, quote, scientific curiosities. These recorded interrogations captured his unsettling mixture of politeness and psychopathy. Marion Albert Pruitt. Marion Albert Pruitt, known for multiple murders across several states, gave one of the most disturbing pre-execution interviews ever aired. Shortly before his 1999 execution, Pruitt appeared on national television in the weeks before his execution and came across as unrepentant, at times laughing.
It's been so many years since I had junk food out on the streets. I'm going to order one of them big Pizza Hut pizzas with a cheese in the ring.
He boasted about living under multiple identities and claimed he had nothing to apologize for. He also made bizarre demands, including asking for payment for certain details of his story.
I got no beef whatsoever with mankind.
Like others on this list, his televised interviews stand out for the unsettling contrast between his casual demeanor and the brutality of his crimes.
I know I'm forgiving them, and that's going to be my last words.
Ivan Cantu. Convicted of shooting and killing a 27-year-old Hispanic male, Ivan Cantu maintained his innocence until the very end.
At face value, when you look at all the evidence, it was an open and shut case.
You've always maintained your innocence?
Absolutely, from day one.
And prior to his 2024 execution, he recorded extensive video statements for supporters and legal advocates, asserting he was framed and that evidence in his case had been mishandled. Cantu's final messages focused on alleged inconsistencies in witness testimony and investigative errors.
I just have to brace for impact. The worst case scenario, they ignore everything.
In his final written statement, he emphasized, quote, I am innocent, urging people to continue reviewing the case. While not formal media interviews, these final recorded declarations became central to the public discourse surrounding his death.
I've always struggled on making sense of what's happened to you.
Thank you for saying that.
Karla Faye Tucker. Karla Faye Tucker became globally known not just for her crimes, but for her televised interviews in the days before her 1998 execution. She spoke on Larry King Live, appearing calm as she discussed her religious conversion, remorse, and desire to help others.
I just knew that I had to cry out to God, let him know that what I'd done was horrible.
Tucker openly acknowledged her responsibility, saying she felt, quote, deep sorrow for the victims' families.
God will meet you right where you're at.
She also gave what some deemed a, quote, thoughtful interview to the Christian Broadcasting Network, where she talked at length about forgiveness. Her interviews, focusing on love and peace, remain some of the most widely discussed ever conducted with a death row inmate.
Redemption, it's about the blood of Jesus and what the power of God to change a life.
Leon Czolgosz. Leon Czolgosz, the assassin of United States President William McKinley, did not give any media interviews before his 1901 execution. However, while he refused reporters repeatedly, he did speak to prison officials and his attorneys. Those conversations were reportedly brief and emotionally flat. He insisted he killed McKinley because he believed the president was, quote, an enemy of the good people. In his final statement on the scaffold, he added that he was, quote, not sorry for the crime. Leon Czolgosz's refusal to elaborate further adds an air of cold ideological rigidity to his final days. Bartolomeo Vanzetti. As part of the infamous Sacco and Vanzetti case, Bartolomeo Vanzetti's final statements in 1927 remain some of the most quoted in American legal history.
Their case becomes a sensation, thanks to the hot-button issue of immigration.
Through extensive letters and statements addressed to supporters, he insisted he was innocent of the murders and framed his execution as politically motivated. In addition to maintaining his innocence, Vanzetti expressed gratitude to allies and voiced hope that their case would inspire justice reform. He famously declared that he had, quote, suffered for things I am guilty of and for things I am innocent of, a line that became central to the public debate.
And despite 6 years of appeals and requests for a retrial, on the 23rd of August, 1927, he sends Sacco and Vanzetti to the electric chair.
Adolf Eichmann. Much of Adolf Eichmann's most infamous commentary came through earlier interviews and interrogations, but his final statements before his 1962 execution added an unsettling note of defiance. Eichmann maintained that he was a patriot following orders and refused to express remorse for orchestrating the logistics of the Holocaust. His final remarks included political references, nationalistic declarations, and an assertion that he was ready to face his fate.
הוא התחיל לומר בגרמנית כמובן, es lebe Deutschland, es lebe Argentina, es lebe Österreich.
The cold, bureaucratic tone that marked his trial followed him right to the gallows, making his last words another disturbing example of how he, like others, rationalized vast atrocities with administrative detachment.
He declares how much he loves Germany, and everything I did, I just did for my fatherland.
Julius Rosenberg. Julius Rosenberg, along with his wife Ethel, was part of the infamous espionage case involving Soviet atomic spying and was accused of providing top-secret information about American radar, sonar, jet propulsion engines, and nuclear weapon designs. During his last days in 1953, Julius communicated primarily through written statements with attorneys and supporters. Rosenberg maintained his innocence until the end, insisting he was a victim of political hysteria. His final message reaffirmed his belief that history would vindicate him. Although there are transcripts of courtroom testimony and letters, he chose not to offer new commentary to journalists before the execution. Rudolf Hiss. Rudolf Hiss, a commandant of Auschwitz, left behind extensive interviews, interrogations, and written reflections in the months leading up to his 1947 execution, making for some of the most chilling confessions ever produced by a war criminal. These documents form one of the most detailed first-hand accounts of the Holocaust's mechanics. Hiss described with disturbing detachment the processes of mass extermination, the design of gas chambers, and the administrative systems behind genocide. In his final days, he continued providing information to investigators and clergy. His last reflections expressed acknowledgement of guilt and responsibility, though critics have long debated his sincerity. Robert Fratta. Robert Fratta, a police officer convicted of orchestrating his wife's murder, maintained a complicated and combative posture in interviews before his 2023 execution.
I kept praying to God, saying, is this the woman that you want me to marry? Because I grew to love her and fall in love with her for the personality that she was.
He continued to insist on his innocence while simultaneously engaging in legal battles over execution protocols and the reliability of evidence. Fratta gave recorded statements criticizing the justice system and expressing frustration with how his case had been handled.
I had nothing to do with my wife's death at all. I've been professing my innocence from the onset.
Even in his final hours, he refused to offer an apology or statement to the victim's family. His final public portrait was one of legal protest and unwavering denial, rather than remorse or confession.
I'm ready. So, yeah, I don't mind dying at all.
Harry T. Hayward. Executed in 1895 for masterminding the murder of a Minneapolis dressmaker, Harry T. Hayward left behind many final statements before his execution that show a man torn between denial and spiritual resignation. In the hours before his hanging, Hayward spoke with clergy and reporters, insisting he had not committed the murder even as evidence mounted against him. His last remarks included quiet prayers, expressions of faith, and a request for mercy from God. His execution occurred during a time when condemned men's final speeches were often printed in full by newspapers, and Hayward's haunting words became another striking feature of those reports. William L. Johansen. William L. Johansen was executed on September 5, 1941 in the gas chamber at San Quentin for the murders of 3 women. While there is limited knowledge of him granting extensive media interviews in his final hours, he did make some statements to the press, including saying, quote, "I don't give a damn if I go to the gas house," and, quote, "I expect the worst. The sooner it comes, the better." His demeanor was described as composed and rational. Reports suggest he spoke quietly and defended his actions, rather than expressing overt remorse. His last words and reflections, captured through newspaper reports and court documents, contribute to a chillingly stoic portrait. Saddam Hussein. Convicted of crimes against humanity, revolutionary politician and former president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, gave no public interviews in the hours before his 2006 execution. However, he participated in lengthy recorded interrogations by the FBI, conducted by Special Agent George Pirro. These sessions, recorded over several months, offer the clearest picture of Saddam's mindset before death.
He expected to die.
Yes.
And you say it didn't bother him?
No.
He spoke at length about his regime, denied involvement in certain atrocities, and attempted to justify others as political necessities. The Pirro interrogations remain the closest equivalent to a pre-execution interview, providing unprecedented insight into his psychology.
No remorse, no concern for the kinds of things that he had ordered and done?
No. No remorse, no regret.
Alvin Andrew Kelly. Alvin Andrew Kelly, executed in 2008 for several murders in Longview and Lake Cherokee, Texas, one involving an infant, gave interviews throughout his appeals.
My desire is to go home to be with the Lord.
He admitted some crimes while denying involvement in others. In the days leading up to his death, Kelly expressed remorse for certain acts and acknowledged the suffering he caused, but continued disputing aspects of the prosecution's case.
I've been persecuted since I've been here because I am a Christian.
His final statement emphasized gratitude towards supporters and an acknowledgement of accountability, though he maintained a degree of distance. Kelly's words revealed a man caught between confession and self-preservation.
I am a child of God. I belong to Him. He do with me what He wants to.
Franklin Dwayne Alex. During a brutal crime spree in the late 1990s, Franklin Dwayne Alex carried out a string of violent acts, including at least 4 murders, a pair of attempted murders, numerous robberies, 2 indecent assaults, and several kidnappings. Franklin used his final interviews and statements to express quiet remorse and spoke calmly about his crimes and the consequences they carried. In his final recorded statement before execution in 2010, Alex offered apologies to victims' families and expressed hopes for spiritual peace. He focused on personal reflection, gratitude, and ultimately, closure. Monroe Betterton. Lee Monroe Betterton was an American serial killer who served time in Missouri for killing his second wife. He was suspected in his first wife's death, and after being paroled and remarrying, murdered his third wife. He left behind final statements preserved entirely through newspaper reporting of the era. Throughout his final hours, Betterton alternated between professions of innocence and quiet acceptance of his fate. Reporters noted that he appeared composed until the final moments, when he suddenly collapsed as the execution preparations began. His last recorded words are brief and fragmentary, typical of early 20th century reporting, but they reveal a man wrestling with guilt, fear, and resignation. William Paul Bud Thompson. A self-described contract killer, William Paul Bud Thompson was executed in 1989 in Nevada. Thompson offered only one public interview before his death, to the LA Times, and spent his final hours speaking privately with chaplains and other inmates. He reportedly expressed gratitude to the prison staff and reflected on the violent choices that led him to death row. Earlier interviews from his incarceration included partial confessions and claims about other crimes. On the day of his execution, Thompson chose a calm and dignified departure, thanking those around him for treating him respectfully. His final hours were marked by acceptance rather than spectacle. Charles Starkweather. The teenage spree killer whose crimes shocked America in the 1950s, Charles Starkweather did not give a formal media interview before his 1959 execution.
Despite a death toll of 11, Starkweather insisted he'd killed in self-defense.
However, he had already participated in detailed jailhouse interviews with local Nebraska reporters shortly after his arrest. In those exchanges, Starkweather blamed his girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate, claiming she was a willing and active participant. he shifted responsibility and portrayed himself as misunderstood. In the days before his execution, he offered no new commentary, but his earlier interviews, filled with deflection and self-pity, remain the key recorded insight into his psychology.
That madness allows him to normalize a world in which his violence will be permissible.
Robert Alton Harris.
But less than 2 hours before his scheduled 12:01 execution time, it's still not certain if California will carry out its first execution in a quarter century.
Thief, kidnapper, and murderer, Robert Alton Harris was executed in 1992 in California after a 25-year moratorium on executions. After a night of repeated legal delays that interrupted the process, Harris's final words, referencing a line made famous in pop culture, struck witnesses as strangely theatrical.
We expected him to be very somber, and he, in fact, was lighthearted, was bantering with his guards.
You see, Robert would slightly misquote a line from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, saying, quote, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper." His last moments and his choice of final words ensured that his execution became one of the most widely discussed in modern capital punishment history.
The sneer on his face, the total disregard of authority or authority figures, or that was just, he was just a criminal, and he acted exactly like, a criminal acts.
Brian Patrick Miller.
Possible that you could have blacked out and done something like that to somebody and not recall?
No, because I knew I had done something when that happened.
It comes as no surprise that convicted killers would continue to insist on their innocence even after they're sentenced. In 2023, Brian Patrick Miller, otherwise known as the Zombie Hunter, was found guilty of 2 murders that he had committed in Phoenix decades prior and condemned to death.
My mother was not a very good person in so many ways, but what helped was that when I was an adult, she acknowledged that she did horrible things to me and apologized.
When giving an interview to 48 Hours, he doubled down on his blamelessness, even implying his DNA had been planted at both scenes. Things became even darker as he revealed an apathetic mindset, implying that everyone had a mask they hid behind and that people didn't care about the truth as long as they had a scapegoat. As of 2024, his official execution date has not been decided, but it's clear he won't stop arguing against it anytime soon.
Victoria told officers she was nearly 100% sure Brian Patrick Miller was her attacker.
Stephen D. Richards. For centuries, people have been curious about the inner workings of a murderer's mind. In the 19th century, Stephen D. Richards was one of the worst, having killed at least 9 people in Nebraska and Iowa before being apprehended. His bloodlust didn't end there, as he reportedly threatened one journalist with extreme physical harm. However, he did allow a few to get some insight, and he didn't hold back. He compared some of his victims to pigs, and even went into graphic detail about how he destroyed a litter of kittens as a child. This did nothing to humanize him, and in 1879, he officially became the first person to be executed in the state of Nebraska.
In Minden, the sheriff issued tickets to the execution of Samuel Richards, guaranteeing eager spectators a choice spot.
Gary Gilmore.
A number of attorneys are still trying to stop Gary Gilmore's execution. They're planning to explore a legal test of the constitutionality of Utah's death penalty. The final plans will be discussed next Monday.
After admitting to causing 2 deaths in Utah and demanding his own execution, Gary Gilmore had the whole country's attention. He could have talked with anyone, but it was Playboy magazine that received the honor. In his interview, he analyzed his own childhood and claimed that his strict authoritarian reform school had driven him to crime.
But he was far from being the usual hoodlum. He had a high IQ and assiduously educated himself.
He also revealed that he had slain both men in order to stop himself from doing the same to his then-girlfriend, showing just how deep-seated his anger was. It was clear he was ready to face the end on his own terms, and did so in 1977.
They said he had a death wish, but Gary Gilmore didn't. He explained that if forced to choose between years in prison and swift execution, he would take death.
Carlton Garry.
The lies and stuff that they were talking about, I don't do that.
Carlton Garry was convicted of the murders of 3 senior women in 1968. The stocking strangler was suspected of several more, however. In an unsettling final interview, Gilmore insisted he was innocent, citing inconclusive evidence and illegitimate actions by police officers. Indeed, his case was scrutinized over multiple appeals, and potential issues like flawed investigative techniques and racial bias all cast doubt on the legitimacy of his mid-80s trial's outcome.
You chose him, but when that man has scruples and say, I'm not going to play this good old boy racist thing, I'm not going to lie on this man, I'm not going to lie for him, I'm not going to lie against him. That's all I've ever asked.
Though DNA positively linked him to at least one murder in 2007, it's disturbing to listen to his voice during this 21st century recording, since his assertion of morality and guiltlessness is capable of evoking genuine sympathy. Nevertheless, Carlton Garry's verdict stood, and he was executed by lethal injection in March 2018.
Those kind of stories don't sell. They don't tell well. You got to have that sensationalism. And that's just a known fact.
Scott Dozier.
It isn't that I want to die. It's that I'd rather be dead than do this.
While some doomed prisoners would do anything to have their sentence overturned, others are more than willing to go. Scott Dozier, convicted of 2 murders in Arizona and Nevada, had originally been condemned by Nevada to execution in 2007, but the state was slow in following through with it. He ended up speaking with Vice News, giving people a glimpse at the charming facade he had carefully built for himself.
How do you feel about the state using fentanyl to kill you?
I think it's awesome. Look, I mean, it's killing people all over the place. You guys get pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl and just bang me up, man.
He spoke casually about the injections, almost making them seem like nothing more than a bad trip. He also questioned the state's ethics, implying that they should follow through with the controversial punishment. After his 2018 execution was stayed, Dozier stopped waiting for them and ultimately took his own life in 2019.
What do you hope for your son? What do you hope for your grandkids?
They are more successful in finding happiness and some degree of satisfaction and gratification in a life within the parameters, you know what I'm saying?
Douglas Clark.
Oh, he knew X.E. Wilson was killed June 22nd. Everybody knows that. But they try to claim my knowledge of the case from the case files I got while in jail indicate I'm guilty.
Someone with an accomplice during a crime spree can often muddy the waters in determining guilt. Douglas Clark, one of the Sunset Strip killers, was convicted of 6 murders in 1983 in California. He had worked with a young woman named Carol Bundy, who was only found guilty of 2 murders. Clark attempted to pin all the blame on her and continued to do so after the trial ended.
We've got the proof Carol Bundy copied Ted Bundy's crimes. The LAPD, Detective Orozco, says he sees no similarities between that case and this case.
In one filmed appearance, he insisted that she was the mastermind and claimed that their relationship made the authorities target him. Despite his depraved actions, he remained adamant that he was a victim as well, right up until he passed from natural causes in late 2023.
If you start copycatting Ted Bundy's crimes today in Wichita, Kansas, you're immune as far as Leroy is concerned of being discovered to be a copycat killer.
Timothy McVeigh.
If government is the teacher, violence would be an acceptable option.
He may not be a traditional serial killer, but he's still responsible for the deaths and injuries of hundreds. Timothy McVeigh committed the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995 after witnessing the Waco siege a couple of years beforehand. After receiving the ultimate penalty, he spoke with 60 Minutes, where it became clear just how little remorse he felt.
In the Gulf War, you were given medals for killing people. So I've faced that issue quite a few times with people that bring it up to me.
He stood by his beliefs, all while questioning the government and explaining how people could voice their dissent. He even went in depth about a conversation he'd had with fellow bomber Ted Kaczynski, presenting themselves as martyrs. He remained indifferent throughout his execution in 2001, where he supposedly had a defiant look on his face the entire time, like he would do it all again if he could.
In truth, from my psychological perspective, it's a little easier being on death row because you know how you're going to die.
Troy Kell.
I kind of took responsibility at that time that I got myself in the situation. Now deal with it.
Troy Kell had been in prison in Nevada and then Utah since he was 18, following a murder he committed in 1986. As soon as he stepped inside those walls, he knew he would do anything to protect himself. His anger continued to build until 1994, when he stabbed an African-American inmate over 60 times.
The race issue was used to justify the power trips, controlling the action, wanting to control the TV, the ice bucket.
In a subsequent HBO documentary, he was candid about the act, making it seem as if he had no other choice. He even described it and his feelings in great detail, revealing how desensitized he was to violence. As of 2024, Kell has yet to face his ultimate consequence and is still attempting to appeal the death sentence decades later.
How much longer do you expect to be alive?
I don't know. I can't even answer that question.
Lawrence Bittaker.
I'm glad that he was kept alive, though, because we've learned so much, I believe, about psychopathy and sadism from him.
While murderers are usually horrific, some are especially depraved. The toolbox killers, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, were responsible for the 1979 assault and slaughter of several teenagers in Southern California. They recorded the horrific events they put some of their victims through, which are still used today to help train new FBI agents.
Why did you want to record it?
I don't know. I come up with some screwy ideas.
Citizens everywhere were ecstatic when they were finally caught and tried, and were even happier when Bittaker received the death penalty. While waiting for execution, he gave several interviews. In one, he described their first kidnapping in extreme detail. In others, he only expressed remorse over having been caught. After nearly 40 years, he passed away naturally, evading the final part of his punishment.
So tell me, are you afraid of death? You said you had a panic attack.
Yeah, I'm getting a little afraid of it lately.
Arthur Gary Bishop.
All right, would you rather die than life in prison? Yes.
While some killers are remorseful over their actions, others are eerily detached from them. Over a period of several years, Arthur Gary Bishop assaulted and killed 5 boys in Utah, earning him a death sentence in 1984. A later documentary allowed viewers into his mind, where he went into an uncomfortable amount of detail.
With Graham, it was like I had a need to dominate him or exploit him or to possess him, if you will.
He described his mindset during his first homicide and how the fear of being sent to prison with a charge regarding underage victims made him want to escalate his actions. He also explained how he constantly shoved his emotions down to the point where he claimed he couldn't feel anything anymore. Unlike others, he only had to wait a few years before being executed, swiftly bringing justice to his victims' families.
Sorry, Ward. I kidnapped and killed
Michael Bruce Ross. Over the course of 3 years in the early 1980s, Michael Bruce Ross claimed the lives of 8 girls and women in Connecticut and New York. Ross had endured a troubled childhood and began his vicious crime spree in his senior year of college.
I just felt like I was right on the edge and like it was just going to be, it wouldn't take much to push me over. And it was very frightening back then. I'm not like that now. I'm just such a lovable guy now.
After he was captured in 1984, Ross confessed to all 8 murders and was sentenced to death in Connecticut. In an interview given while awaiting execution, the roadside strangler, as he came to be known, casually recounted his heinous crimes.
It was 3:30 in the afternoon on a fairly well-driven road. She was walking along the side of the road, and I just stopped the car, got out of the car.
At one point, he even bragged about the strength with which he strangled his victims.
It was an insane strength or something, and because I got a kick out of it because the prosecutor, I knew, had no idea that was coming.
Ross was executed in 2005, the last person to face that penalty in the state of Connecticut.
For some of us, death is not a punishment.
Edward Wayne Edwards. Right from his childhood, Edward Wayne Edwards lived a life of crime, even once appearing on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list.
It was a female who identifies herself as April. She said, "I think my dad could be responsible for Tim and Kelly. I think he killed them." And she said his name is Edward Wayne Edwards.
Edwards began killing after being granted parole in 1967 and was responsible for at least 5 deaths.
There were some cigarettes in the bottom of the duffel bag. I said, "You go ahead and get them out."
Edwards lived as a free man for decades before being arrested in 2009 and sentenced to life imprisonment for his crimes.
I felt bad, but apparently not bad enough that I kept from doing it.
Seeking a quick punishment, Edwards sat for an interview with the Associated Press, during which he confessed to killing his foster son, Danny Boy Edwards, for a life insurance payout.
He was stealing from my children, and I'm very close to my family in that respect. And so I just let my mind, I'm not new to crime.
In 2011, Edwards was handed the death penalty for Danny's murder. However, he died of natural causes just 1 month later. Bobby Joe Long. For more than 3 decades, Bobby Joe Long sat on death row in Florida before he was executed in 2019. Long was not only a serial killer, with at least 10 victims to his name, he was also a serial predator, having assaulted more than 50 women in around 3 years.
As soon as I opened my eyes from being asleep, that's what I was thinking about. That didn't let up until I did it.
He was arrested in November 1984 after one of his victims, Lisa McVeigh, led the authorities to him. Long claims in this interview with Miami's WPLG that his compulsions were triggered by a motorcycle accident that left him with head injuries.
The first time I did it, I couldn't really believe I did it.
With a piercing stare and a creepy half smile, he talks about being an average Joe who just happened to go off the edge every once in a while.
Probably 99.9% of the time, I'm as normal as he is or anybody else is. But there's that 1% of the time.
Andrei Chikatilo.
He was in a large iron cage in the courtroom. The cage was to protect him from the rage of the parents of the victims.
One of the most infamous killers in Soviet history, Andrei Chikatilo terrorized the Rostov Oblast in Soviet Russia between 1978 and 1990. Chikatilo claimed to have taken the lives of 56 people and was convicted of 52 murders. Referred to as the Butcher of Rostov, Chikatilo was known for his erratic behavior in court, but appeared a lot more restrained in this interview he granted before his execution. He rambles on about his troubled childhood and growing up during the Great Famine of the early 1930s in Soviet Ukraine.
Как раз все мое детство пришло, это на военные, на голодные годы, так что мы там только лишь бы пухлые ходили, жали бы выжить, какая там была.
When asked about the afterlife, Chikatilo brushes it off and expresses his readiness for whatever comes next.
Все это я считаю, что все это меня не касается, как-то все это прошло мимо моего сознания, все это не задумываюсь. Вот о муках своих я.
Perhaps most disturbing was his past desire to become a dictator from as early as the 9th grade.
Всех их пикаю, всех их знал, всех. Еще с 9 класса, когда Сталин умер, я уже готов был принять от Сталина это все, это самое наследство, быть генсеком этой партии, это все, мировое коммунистическое движение.
Danny Rolling. Like some of the other individuals on this list, Danny Rolling was the product of a sadistic upbringing. In his adulthood, Rolling became a serial killer, murdering 3 people in his hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, and 5 others in the student community of Gainesville, Florida. In 2004, Rolling appeared in this episode of the Canadian true crime TV show Forensic Factor.
I let the evil in, and the evil just took over. And it was like when the sun would go down, I couldn't resist it.
Rolling seems to express some remorse for his crimes and concedes that he deserves to die. But his demeanor throughout the interview appears to be that of someone needing to be the center of attention.
When the morning would come up, it was just like I would hate myself. It was like my God, what have I become?
That comes as no surprise, as he previously admitted his desire to be a well-known criminal, like fellow serial killer Ted Bundy.
I don't even know how much longer I'm gonna be on this earth. But when I die, I hope I'm ready. I hope I die half as bravely as the people who perished at my hand.
Peter Kürten. In the early 20th century, Peter Kürten reigned terror on the German city of Dusseldorf, assaulting and killing at least 9 people. He was known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf due to his disturbing fascination with blood. After his arrest in May of 1930, Kürten was analyzed by psychiatrist Dr. Carl Berg over a series of interviews. The infamous killer claimed that although there was a sexual nature to his crimes, he was primarily motivated by the sight of blood. He also stated that the very act of attacking his victims brought him intense relief. Just before his execution by guillotine, Carlton asked his psychiatrist if he would be able to hear the sound of his own blood gushing out after his decapitation. Tommy Lynn Sells. California-born Tommy Lynn Sells claims to have committed over 70 murders. If true, that would make him one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history.
Every time I did it, it was that rush again, and I started chasing that high.
Despite his claims, Sells was convicted of only one murder and sentenced to die in September of 2000. In a jailhouse interview with Martin Bashir for ABC's Nightline, Sells described himself as an emotionless person, and that comes across quite clearly in the recorded clip.
When you look at me, you know what hate is. I don't know what love is.
With no remorse whatsoever, he recounted his killings, detailing the rush he got from taking innocent lives. It's a rare glimpse into the mind of a heartless killer, and one capable of sending chills down any spine.
Why would that happen?
I didn't want him to live through the pain I lived through.
Angel Maturino Resendiz. Dubbed the Railroad Killer, Angel Maturino Resendiz was known to illegally hop trains as he traveled across the U.S. He would then invade homes close to the railroads, rob them, and murder the occupants.
This offender, unlike a lot of others, spent an incredible amount of time in that house going through everything.
In total, authorities believe Resendiz killed at least 15 people in this manner. His calm and reserved behavior throughout this interview with renowned journalist Jacqueline Cacho heavily contrasts the vicious nature of his crimes. Given entirely in Spanish, Resendiz doesn't necessarily go into explicit detail about the murders in this interview. Instead, he seemingly alludes to the motivation behind them. Although he described himself as an eternal being who was incapable of dying, Resendiz was executed by lethal injection on June 27, 2006. Earl Forrest. Back in December 2002, a drug dispute between longtime friends Earl Forrest and Harriet Smith resulted in the former murdering the latter in her home.
I asked her, all I wanted was a lawnmower. She said, Earl, I'll get you a lawnmower. I felt like I was being lied to.
Forrest also killed another friend of theirs, Michael Wells, who was visiting Smith at the time, as well as a deputy sheriff during a police shootout afterwards.
Why'd you shoot him?
I don't know. She looked at me funny, I guess.
For his crimes, he was put to death by lethal injection on May 11, 2016. The first season of the A&E docuseries The Killer Speaks features an interview with Forrest, who is completely devoid of any remorse.
Did you feel bad?
I don't know what I felt.
Instead, he puts the responsibility of his actions on Smith for not fulfilling a promise she made him. Watching the clip, you'd think he was the victim of the crime.
I did something for her, she was supposed to do something for me. Why did she, have to put us both in that position?
Joseph Paul Franklin. Joseph Paul Franklin was a notorious serial killer and white supremacist who is believed to have been responsible for at least 20 murders.
I mean, I can't go back and think about the cases, individually. I have too much other problems, too much other things I have to focus on.
Franklin mostly targeted interracial couples, African Americans, and Jewish people in his attacks. He also famously shot adult magazine publisher Larry Flynt in March 1978. Although this interview Franklin granted to CNN before his 2013 execution provides little information about his depraved crimes, it gives some insight into his state of mind.
And what was your mission?
Well, to try to get a race war started.
At the time of the murders, he genuinely believed that he was doing the will of God.
As misguided as I was doing the will of God. I thought I was actually doing right. This is what God wanted me to do.
While his mindset about that may have changed, Franklin still seems to relish in the fact that he is viewed as a hero by certain extremist groups.
Do you think you're a hero to those hate groups?
Well, that's what they tell me,
Gary Ray Bowles. Also featured on the A&E docuseries The Killer Speaks was Gary Ray Bowles. Bowles' victims were largely gay men who lived along the Interstate 95 highway, earning him the nickname I-95 Killer.
Why'd you take him out to that golf course?
I just got a bad vibe from the guy.
In this taped interview for the TV show, Bowles seems to revel in the memories of his crimes as he recounts them. Not only is he amused when he recalls stealing a man's identity to evade capture, he also refers to one of his victims as, quote, crazy and creepy.
There's not really a way to describe it,
I guess, relief.
Throughout the interview, Bowles tries to justify the murders, claiming that his victims had done specific things that seemingly triggered him to kill.
So I put one of the videos in. What came on the screen, it shocked me.
The apparent lack of accountability he shows only makes this much more uncomfortable to watch.
I took the birth certificate and social security card. I took it down to the DMV and I told them I lost my driver's license, and I basically became Timothy Ronald Whitfield.
Billy Wayne Coble.
Who is not going to leave this world? Aren't we all?
Described by one prosecutor as having, quote, a heart full of scorpions, Billy Wayne Coble killed his estranged wife's parents and brother. Coble remained on death row in Texas for nearly 30 years before he was executed by lethal injection in February of 2019. In the days leading up to his capital punishment, Coble sat down with Susanna Reid for his final interview.
To you, it matters. To some people, it matters. To me, it really no longer matters.
Without going into much detail about his crimes, Reid asks Coble if he regrets committing them. Coble cunningly evades the question and would only admit that he was behind the murders.
I've already said that I regret what happened. Now, I truly regret what happened. But I also truly regret what happened to a lot of things in life.
He repeats this trend, even when he's asked if he loved his former wife. This evasive behavior is just one more unsettling thing about this seemingly disturbed individual.
Did you love her, though?
I met my Karen when she was about 16, 17 years old.
Oscar Ray Bolin. In the mid-1980s, Oscar Ray Bolin killed 3 women throughout the Tampa area. Following his arrest, Bolin's cousin testified against him and implicated him in a 4th homicide. He received 3 death sentences and was executed on January 7, 2016 at the age of 53. One day before his death, Bolin was interviewed by Tampa's Fox 13.
How are you feeling this morning?
A little numb. I mean, I don't know how you would expect someone to feel. I mean, if they told you tomorrow you're dying, how would you feel?
Bolin appears calm and courteous throughout the interview, even expressing fear and worry about his upcoming execution. He also professes his innocence, something he continuously maintained throughout his imprisonment.
So you're saying you didn't murder these women?
No.
You didn't murder Natalie Hawley?
No.
Stephanie Collins?
No.
Terry Lynn Matthews?
No. I didn't know. I'd never seen him, never met him.
Bolin looks and sounds like a nice enough guy, which only makes the darkness underneath seem that much more sinister.
After 28 years of this, it's been in this box for 28 years. It's a release. My punishment's over. They can't hurt me no more.
Richard Ramirez.
As far as Satan is concerned, I believe in a malevolent being. His description eludes me, but I have felt powers that are evil.
A notorious serial killer known as the Night Stalker, Ramirez terrorized California with his violent burglaries, assaults, and killings. Ramirez took the lives of at least 15 people and was convicted of 13 homicides, leading to 19 separate death sentences. In 1993, Inside Edition aired an interview with Ramirez, who was then awaiting execution on death row.
They are desires, whereas if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them.
Among other discussion points, he explained his theories on the psychological development of serial killers like himself. Even more chilling, when asked why he killed his victims, Ramirez hides a smile and simply says,
No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
Ramirez was still awaiting execution in 2013 when he died of cancer. Carroll Cole. A very prolific serial killer, Carroll Cole claimed at least 16 victims throughout his life, although he confessed to killing 35. He was originally sentenced to life in prison in Texas, but was given the death penalty following his extradition to Nevada. 3 days before his execution, Cole granted an interview to Las Vegas's KLAS-TV. While smoking a cigarette, Cole shows complete indifference for his own life, but expresses remorse for his crimes.
Why not fight for your life?
I just don't care to.
Are you sorry?
For the victim?
Yes.
Yes.
In the end, He even claims that he deserves to die for what he did.
Well, it's the ultimate question. It is the question. For what I did, yes, I think I deserve to die.
Cole is very quiet and reserved, and aside from some brief flashes, doesn't show much emotion. It makes the interview all the more disturbing.
And condemn myself for many years, because I can just imagine what her life might have been like.
Wesley Allen Dodd. On January 5th, 1993, Wesley Allen Dodd was executed by hanging, making him the first American criminal to be legally hanged in nearly 30 years. Between September and November of 1989, Dodd assaulted and killed 3, leading to his moniker, the Vancouver Child Killer. Dodd's final interview is absolutely bone-chilling. With complete confidence, Dodd states that he would kill again if set free, and that he, quote, liked what he did.
I've done it before, and at the time I liked it.
He also claims that his execution would make a great example for future criminals. Throughout his interview, Dodd proves that he was fully self-aware, and a self-aware killer is a very scary thing.
Do you look forward to dying? In a way, yeah. I think it'd be a relief. I don't have to think about all these things anymore. And I know that's the only way I can guarantee I'm not going to hurt anybody else.
Velma Barfield. The first woman to be lethally injected, Velma Barfield killed 6 people between 1969 and 1978. She was convicted for just 1 homicide, that of her boyfriend, Roland Stewart Taylor. However, it was enough to ensure a death sentence, and Barfield was executed on November 2, 1984. Her interview with Raleigh's WBTV shows a woman in pain rather than one who causes it. She seemingly attempts to garner sympathy by speaking about her isolation in prison and her years-long battle with drugs.
The last 10 years was just like that. Years of a drug nightmare.
She also credits God for getting her through the trials and tribulations of prison life.
Living in prison every day is a struggle, even at its best. And I know that without him and his strength that has sustained me, I couldn't have made it even thus far.
While Barfield apologizes for her crimes, most of the interview is about her, and it may rub many viewers the wrong way.
Today, if it were possible, I wish that I could take every bit of hurt on myself.
John Wayne Gacy. Known widely as the Killer Clown, John Wayne Gacy claimed at least 33 lives inside his suburban Chicago home. At the time, Gacy set an American record for the most homicide convictions. In 1992, he spoke with Walter Jacobson of CBS 2 Chicago as part of a television event. In a rather shocking and unnerving turn of events, Gacy played innocent.
If they want to be convinced or brainwashed into what they believe, then fine, then go ahead and kill me. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because you will have executed somebody that didn't commit the crime.
He even claimed that he took a, quote, truth serum, and that proved his innocence.
I've taken 3.5 hours of truth serum. And under sodium amytal, the maximum amount that I could have, it shows that I have no knowledge of the crime whatsoever.
Like Barfield, Gacy also plays the sympathy card, portraying himself as a loving family man.
I've always looked after my children, even now.
Yet sometimes the veneer slips, and Jacobson is quick to notice the scheming man underneath. It's all quite eerie and probably not at all what viewers were expecting. Ted Bundy. On January 23, 1989, Ted Bundy, perhaps the most notorious serial killer in American history, was visited by a psychologist named James Dobson, and it showcases his well-publicized powers of manipulation. Bundy appears clean and well-dressed, offering a friendly next-door neighbor vibe.
What's going through my mind right now is to use the minutes and hours that I have left as fruitfully as possible and see what happens.
He's charismatic, charming, and well-spoken. Not at all what one would expect from a serial killer. Finally, he latches on to Dobson's evangelical beliefs, blaming both the adult film industry and violence in the media for his crimes.
This kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior.
It fueled your fantasies, didn't it?
Well, in the beginning it fuels this kind of thought process.
Biographers and historians argue that this is a prime example of classic Bundy subterfuge. Knowing that, the footage comes across as deeply ominous and foreboding. The term psychopath is often bandied around too often, but in this case, many agree that the term fits.
I couldn't control it anymore, that these barriers that I had learned as a child, that had been instilled in me, were not enough to hold me back with respect to seeking out and harming somebody.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Aileen Wuornos. The final interview with Aileen Wuornos is the complete antithesis of Ted Bundy's. Wuornos shot and killed 7 men in a span of 1 year, and while she claimed self-defense, she was found guilty of 6 homicides and sentenced to death. Wuornos' final interview is deeply troubling.
But you're okay now.
I'm okay. I'm okay. God is going to be there. Jesus Christ is going to be there. All the angels and everything.
She often widens her eyes and yells in a confrontational tone, and even verbally attacks the interviewer Nick Broomfield. She makes bizarre claims like getting tortured by, quote, sonic pressure.
And they were using sonic pressure on my head since 1997.
Sonic pressure?
And every time I was trying to write something, I think they had some kind of eye in the cell, I'm not sure, but every time I started writing something, it went up higher. So I'm thinking that probably had the TV rigged.
She states that dying will be like Star Trek, and that she'll go on to colonize another planet.
I think it's going to be more like Star Trek, beaming me up into a space vehicle, man. Then I move on, recolonize to another planet or whatever. But it's whatever's beyond. I know it's going to be good because I didn't do anything as wrong as they said.
Wuornos' violent past, her abrasive behavior, and her mental state all combine to create some truly uncomfortable viewing. Which of these haunting pre-execution interviews and statements stuck with you the most? Let us know in the comments below.